everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Life Interrupted, and this is a segment of my original podcast, Life Interrupted, called Remembering Remarkable Lives. In this podcast, we look at people who have passed away the month before, and sometimes it's famous people, sometimes it's people that just kind of make the news because of how they died or the controversy around their deaths. And so we do talk about death and sometimes some emotional or some really hard-hitting things. So there may be some triggers, some emotional responses. So just a disclaimer to let you know that sometimes we talk about some really tough things to talk about. So, all right. So, I'm sorry. This is my co-podcaster, Vicky Skinner.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Vicky?
I'm all right.
Good. All right, let's start talking about the people who passed away last month, which is April of 2026. So we talk about 5 people, and then we each have a highlight person. The first person I want to talk about is Sidus Yolis. And people are probably going, who is Sidus Yolis? Actually, that is Sid Croft. Sid Croft was born July 30th, 1929. He was a Canadian television creator, writer, and puppeteer. Through the production company of Sid and Marty Croft Pictures, they made numerous children's television and variety show programs in the U.S., particularly in the 1970s, including H.R. Pufnstuf, Land of the Lost, and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. Their fantasy programs often featured large-headed puppets, high-concept plots, and extensive use of low-budget special effects. The Crofts favored quirky superhero stories, often with children portraying the heroes or part of the hero team. Croft productions included The Bugaloos, Lidsville, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Land of the Lost Saucer, Electro Woman and Dinah Girl, and Wonderbug. Sid died at the home of a friend in Los Angeles on April 10th, 2026, at the age of 96. His brother, Marty Croft, passed away 3 years ago from kidney failure at the age of 86. And this picture we have up is of Sid Croft, and that is the character from H.R. Pufnstuf. And I grew up on that, watching H.R. Pufnstuf. And it's funny because I still reference it today when I talk about when my hair is doing unruly things. I will talk about Witchy Poo. And Witchy Poo was the bad person, the evil person on H.R. Pufnstuf. So Ron's like, Witchy Poo? Yeah, you don't know who Witchy Poo is? He was very sheltered. He knows
Well,
none of these. He didn't watch any of this stuff.
what did he watch as a kid?
I don't even know.
I'd be interested to know because it's really interesting to, not to go off topic, but it's really interesting to see the shows, which shows different people were watching as kids,
Mhm.
because you just kind of have this weird assumption that you're all watching the same shows, but there were so many kid shows, and some, like, I watched almost exclusively animated kid shows because I liked animated kid shows. But so, like, I didn't watch like Sesame Street, and I didn't grow up on some of those that my friends did because I really liked animated shows. And so, yeah.
Yeah, H.R. Pufnstuf, Land of the Lost. Let me see what it was, the other Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those were, of course, those were a Saturday morning, sometimes after school programs that we would watch, and they would group them all together. So you'd watch one day, and actually, I think they came on every day, and you'd watch one, and then watch the next, and then watch this. You sat in front of the TV for like 3 hours watching
Mm-hmm.
all of these, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This, like I said, these, I still treasure them. I still think they're,
Sure.
because that picture of HR Pufnstuf, I mean, it is very vibrant, very colorful, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
that does attract children.
Mm-hmm. See, and I don't, and of course, I have not ever seen it, but I know the name, Jar Puff and stuff, and I know Land of the Lost I've heard about, and of course, like, I see this face, and I know the face, the iconic puppet, and so some of it has certainly is still iconic even now.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, I'm going to look at HR Puffin stuff because the main kid in there he was whisked away into this imaginary world and he couldn't get back. And Jack Wilde is the kid who played Jimmy, and I believe he was English. Yeah, Oldham, England.
Hmm.
Oh, he was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Yeah, he was. Yeah, I recognize him from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Okay, let's go on to the next person, which is William Patrick Muldoon III. He was born September 27th, 1968. He was an American actor, film producer, and musician. He is best known for his roles as Austin Reed in Days of Our Lives and Xander Barkalow in Starship Troopers. Muldoon was the first actor to play the role of Austin Reed in Days of Our Lives from 1992 to 1995, and again from September 11th to July 2012. Prior to that, in 1991, he landed a role on the popular teen television series Saved by the Bell. From 95 to 96, Muldoon played the popular villain Richard Hart on the primetime soap opera Melrose Place. He died in his home in Beverly Hills from a heart attack at age 57.
Goodness.
Yeah, he was young. And you said you didn't recognize him?
Looking at this picture that you included here, he looks mildly familiar, but I mean, looking at what he's known for, I have not watched any of that. So,
I haven't
I
either.
mean, yeah, okay.
I think because I'm not a soap opera person.
Me
When I
neither, yeah.
did watch soap operas, it was Young and the Restless, but I have seen a couple of episodes of Days of Our Lives,
Hmm.
and but I did recognize his face. Okay, the next person is Donald Allen Schlitz Jr. He was born August 29th, 1952. He was an American songwriter who wrote more than 20 number one hits on the country music charts. He was best known for his song The Gambler, sung by Kenny Rogers, and as the co writer of Forever and Ever Amen, sung by Randy Travis, and When You Say Nothing at All, sung by Keith Whitley and Alison Krauss and Union Station. For his songwriting efforts, Schlitz earned 2 Grammy Awards and 4 ASCAP Country Songwriter of the Year awards. There wasn't much about his early life, but he had an extensive songwriting career and was inducted into 4 different halls of fame, namely the National Songwriters Hall of Fame, the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, and the Country Music Hall of Fame, and the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame. On August 30th, 2022, he was inducted as a member of the Grand Ole Opry. Schlitz died at a hospital in Nashville, Tennessee, following a sudden illness. He was 73. I think it's absolutely amazing when, songwriters, I written songs. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at finding the creative words for it. But these songwriters, I mean, they are just lyricists. They are just some of the words. I'm like, how did they come up with that? Absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
And of course, his songs are just so I mean, they're worldly. I mean, The Gambler?
Hmm.
Who doesn't know The Gambler?
I don't even know that I've actually ever heard the song itself, but it's one of those that's referenced so often that like I know what it is, even though like, I don't listen to Kenny Rogers. And it's the same
Yeah.
with Forever and Ever Amen. Like I don't really listen to Randy Travis. I know that song, but I don't really listen to Randy Travis. Of course, When You Say Nothing at All was I've heard since the Keith Whitley and Alison Krauss version, but I grew up on the Ronan Keating version, which is not country, so that's the only reason I've heard that one because I just don't really listen to country.
Right.
But I love that song so much; it's probably my favorite song. So.
Yeah. Okay. Next person is Gerard Francis Conway, born September 10th, 1952. He was an American comic book writer and editor, science fiction writer, screenwriter, and television writer and producer. He co created the Marvel Comics vigilante anti hero, The Punisher, as well as Peter Parker's clone Ben Reilly, the supervillain Jackal, and the first Miss Marvel. He also wrote the death of the character Gwen Stacy during his long run on The Amazing Spider-Man in the story arc The Night Gwen Stacy Died. For DC Comics, he co-created the superheroes Firestorm, Power Girl, Jason Todd, and the villain Killer Croc, and wrote Justice League of America for 8 years. Conway wrote the first major modern-day intercompany crossover, Superman vs. The Amazing Spider-Man. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, and loved comics since he was young. He published his first professional comic book work at 16 with the 6.5-page horror story Aaron Phillips' Photo Finish in DC Comics' House of Secrets number 81 in September 1969. Conway wrote and later produced such TV series as Father Dowling Mysteries, Diagnosis Murder, Matlock, Jake and the Fat Man, Under Suspicion, Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, Baywatch Nights, Pacific Blue, Silk Stockings, Perry Mason Telefilms, Law and Order, The Huntress, Law and Order Criminal Intent, and 2 episodes of Batman the Animated Series. Jerry Conway died on April 26, 2026 in Thousand Oaks, California from pancreatic cancer.
A lot of
That is,
real like legacy going on in
yes,
this month.
yes.
A lot of names that I feel like I probably should have known. Punisher is one of my favorite Marvel characters. So I'm like, this is a
Mhm.
name I should have known. I don't interact a whole lot with the comics. I had decided at one point that I was going to go back and do Marvel comics because I was living in a city where the comic selection at the library was very vast. But going back to the 50s with some of these comics, and then there being so many different iterations, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comics, and I just couldn't I wrap my brain around like any of it.
It's
And so
overwhelming.
I don't know a whole lot in the way of the comics, but seeing the people who were, the beginning of things, because, people like Stan Lee, where they created them. And then, of course, since then, there have been dozens of different writers around one storyline or one character, but, there's only one creator. So it's very
Yeah.
cool.
And of course, they also put Stan Lee out front. A
Sure.
lot of they put him in the movies, and a lot of people knew about him. Of course, he
Yeah.
was at Comic Cons and things like that. And I think even the picture we have of Gerard Conway, he looks like he's at maybe a Comic Con.
Yeah, con of some sort, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Our next person is Gwendolyn Yancey Farrell. Born November 29th, 1932, she was an American actress and boxing referee. She was known for her work on the television show MASH and Billy Jack Goes to Washington. She acted as various nurses in a recurring serial role on MASH for 26 episodes, including the finale. She was the first licensed woman boxing referee and also one of the first women boxing referees to officiate the world title fight. She also appeared in many films, including Coffee, Earthquake, Billy Jack Goes to Washington, Black Gun, and Soylent Green. Farrell died in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles, California on April 30th, 2026, at the age of 93. She was survived by her husband, Frank Adair, and son, Keith Farrell, who announced her death. I just felt I had to include her because MASH.
Yeah, I recognize her face from MASH, but what a side quest of a boxing referee. Like that's so very cool.
Yeah. I didn't dive into that,
Mm.
so I don't know if she refereed women's boxing or men's
Mm.
boxing.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if women's boxing was around
That's what I
back
was
then.
wondering is depending on the time period, it might not have been.
Yeah. All right, that's all we have of our 5 chosen people. My highlight person is Alan Ralph Osmond, born June 22nd, 1949. He was an American singer and musician. He was best known for being a member of the family musical group The Osmonds. Prior to that, Allen at age 12 and his brothers were performing as the Osmond Brothers Voice Quartet. He served as leader of the group. Like all the Osmonds, he was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He served in the National Guard and helped create Stadium of Fire, which is part of the week-long America's Freedom Festival in Provo, Utah, that celebrates the nation's freedom. He was married to his wife for 52 years at the time of his death. They had 8 sons, including entertainer David Osmond. And I'm going to put a link in the comments of my favorite song of the Osmonds, which was Down by the Lazy River. And it's such a fun video to watch. They're on a television show and probably a variety show. And we were watching it and I thought, how are these guys strumming their guitars? Of course, sometimes when they were on stage, they were not really playing them but it sounds like they are. And they are just so physically active. And
Mm,
I was like, how are these guys? I mean, I don't know. You just have to watch the video. They are,
mm.
doing footwork short of turning flips. It's just really funny.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to watching that. So, because I don't really know anything about the Osmonds, so is he a brother of Donny Osmond? Is it Donny Osmond?
Donny Osmond, yes. So if you do watch the video, they all those were brothers. They
Mm,
were they were a big family. And then Marie Osmond, which is their sister,
mm,
I think she was the only daughter of the family, but of course, they were huge back in the 70s. I heard about them because your Aunt Diane loved them. She would watch The Partridge Family with David Cassidy, and then she'd watch the Osmonds. She listened to the Jackson 5. She listened to Cher, Sonny and Cher, and all those big singers back in the 70s. It was your Aunt Carol who introduced me to the rock bands, Led Zeppelin and Foghat of the 70s and 80s. But the Osmonds they were all brothers, and in the video, Donnie is the young one playing the keyboards. So he was
mm.
the youngest of the Osmonds.
All
Yep.
right.
And I think, again, I didn't do a deep dive into it because I know that Donnie started doing his own stuff. So it was, and then of course, the Donnie and Marie variety show, they were together and they were kids. They were kids. I mean, they were literally like 14 and 15 years old. They were
Mm,
kids, but very talented.
mm.
Yeah. So I feel sad that he's gone. Kind of like part of my childhood died.
Yes.
All right, Vicky, who is your highlight person?
All right. I'm going to be talking about Juha Miettinen. Hopefully, I got that right. It's Finnish, so he was Finnish.
Oh,
And I actually, unfortunately, was not able to find a whole lot about him, and it's not all that surprising, but that's why we're doing this, right? Because we want people to learn more. He died during the I always have trouble saying it, Nürburgring. It was a qualifying race for the Nürburgring 24-hour race, the endurance race that happened in mid-May. And there was a 7-car accident. And the other 6 drivers that were involved were taken to the hospital. They were all injured. He was the only one who died. And it's really interesting because I had my Formula One party last month, and sort of I did a presentation, and part of my presentation I was telling everyone Formula One is so safe, and Formula One is so very safe compared to what it used to be. Obviously, no motorsport is 100% safe, but so many things have been put into place. And I feel that a lot of the motorsports are very safe these days. The cars in Formula One have been optimized for driver safety, and in other sports, there's a little bit less because there's less money in them. Like Formula One is very much the top of the top in motorsport, and so lots of money. Whereas some of the other series, just there isn't as much, and so there's not as much of a focus on things like safety. And of course, I say that not knowing necessarily. I'm not going to go look at footage because I'm not strong enough for something like that. So I don't actually know like what happened, what was the nature of this accident that he died. But the cars are different, and so potentially not as safe. And I know that the Nürburgring, it's a track in the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. It's Dutch. That's the Netherlands, right? And it's kind of a dangerous track, but it's a very, very famous track. So Juha was not a household name, so he wasn't like a famous driver. Obviously, would have been well known in his circles and in the circles there. So he had competed, I think it said something like 10 times in this race, and he was 66. And so he had been an endurance driver in other series, and so people in the sport and in the series that he was driving in would have known him very well. He wasn't this like well-known public figure. And he had this year had, I think it said 7 podiums at
Wow.
Nürburgring and 1 win and then 6 other podiums. And so he was very passionate about this specific series, about driving at this specific race and at this specific track. He drove for Kevin Sports and Racing. The fact that he was not well known, like he was doing it for the right reasons. He did this because he loved it. And a lot of the endurance drivers, a lot of the drivers, especially that drive into later into their lives, are very passionate about it. There are rally car drivers that are in their 60s and 70s. Formula One is different because it's a lot harder on the body, and also there's so few spots and so many people who want those spots, and so people don't tend to stay as long. In endurance driving and rally driving, they will stay longer as long as there's a spot for them because that experience, people want to sponsor that. They want to sponsor experience. It's funny because I put in his name and there were so many people with this name that were also athletes. I found a soccer player and I think a tennis player. So he was kind of lost in all of this, and there really isn't much about him. And the reason, of course, that I know about so when this happened, it was very much, it always is in motorsport that it's like, I don't watch this series, I don't watch NASCAR, IndyCar, all of these things, but they're all very connected, especially because there are fans that are watching across different sports. And then, of course, this one was being watched by a lot of F1 fans because they weren't racing for the same team or anything, but Max Verstappen was also racing and did race in the Nürburgring this year. So everyone was kind of already aware of what was going on. And so it was a little bit of a, like, everything stopped for a minute. It was like, guys, like, and so people in my group chat going, oh my God, guys, this happened. And so it's always very sad and very scary when there's a death in motorsport because you do, and I say this a lot about Formula One that I'm like, it used to be so, so, so dangerous. And if it was still that dangerous, I wouldn't watch it because I couldn't get attached to these human beings and knowing that they could die at any moment. And of course they can, right? Like they could die on the track, they could die off the track. This could always happen, but it's different when it's, oh, they were getting in the car knowing that they were taking their life in their hands, and that kind of stuff just doesn't quite happen anymore. And because it happens so much less, it's always more shocking when it does happen. What I ended up kind of looking at were his stats. All I could find were his driving stats. He was Finnish. He was an endurance driver, and an endurance driver means that so there are 24-hour races, which is what the Nürburgring was that he was competing in. It's a 24-hour race, and they have teams. Sometimes, depending on the race, sometimes it's 2 people, sometimes it's 4 people, and they'll switch off. So the people will race for so many hours while someone else is sleeping, and then they pull up the car and then they swap places, and it's kind of like a relay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so some people, this is what they do. And actually, so you would know, so in F1, the movie, that's what Brad Pitt is sleeping and somebody comes and wakes him up and he goes and gets in the car. That's an endurance race, and I believe that that's Le Mans, which is like the most famous endurance race. So he had competed at the Nürburgring in at least 10 documented. It's the NLS, which is it's Dutch. So it's Nürburgring Langstrecken Series. So it's an endurance series, the NLS, and 24-hour qualifying races over the span of his career. So he had done at least 10 of them. He achieved a total of 8 class victories at the circuit, including a V4 class championship in 2023. I don't actually know what that means, but he won some stuff, which is great. He was well known at the circuit, at the Nürburgring. He was 66 and was killed in a 7-vehicle collision during the first qualifying race for the Nürburgring 24 hours. Despite immediate medical intervention at the scene and resuscitation attempts, he succumbed to his injuries in the medical center. 6 other drivers were transported to nearby hospitals with non-life-threatening injuries. I did find this was someone else who was racing in the series, and they just wrote something nice on Instagram that I thought I would read. I did not know Juha, yet his death at Nürburgring stopped me. Driving was not his profession, it was his passion. His age did not matter, he never got enough of the old Nürburgring circuit. He walked on the paddock with a smile on his face. He led a meaningful life until the end. That is Juha's legacy for all of us.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained that because I was going to ask what endurance racing was.
It's
24 hours. Wow. So how long do they race before another driver takes over?
I think it just depends on the race. I don't even know what the minimum is or the max. I'm not quite sure. I've learned a little bit about Le Mans over the years, but not very much. It is very impressive, and people do it much later into their lives because it's not about, I mean, yes, it's still a race. So you still have to, you lose time swapping out cars and or swapping out drivers and then all of that, but it's not anything like what we watch in Formula One, and so it's less difficult, I think, on the actual, on their bodies.
Yes, it's very tragic
Mhm.
when one of them dies, and I don't know if it's just because of the way they die.
I think what's so hard on me is the fact that it's televised. You see it happen. Most people go their whole lives without ever seeing someone die. Their grandparent, old in bed, that's a little different. But seeing someone who is just very suddenly gone like that, I think it's very startling. I think about that a lot because I'm sure you remember this in Vancouver at the Olympics, the bobsled guy who died. That is one that I think about it every time I watch the Winter Olympics. I think about it anytime I watch bobsledding. I think about it all the time because we were watching it. I mean, we watched this thing happen, and then of course they reported on it for the entire rest of the Olympics, and they kept showing the video over and over and over again. And I'm like, can you stop showing me this video of this person who died? Like, because it's not just, oh, here's a person and he's doing a thing and he died somewhere else where you couldn't see. It was like, no, I'm watching him die, and that is so traumatizing. It would be one thing if one of the Formula One guys were to just die like normal people do, out in the world somewhere, and something else entirely to be watching a race where everyone's having fun and we're having a party and it's great, and someone is suddenly dead right in front of you. Like, that would be the most horrifying thing. So,
Yeah. And I guess I was looking it up as you were talking. They don't know what happened, what caused the wreck. They just all of a sudden knew there was a wreck.
yeah,
So,
someone had said that it was possibly an oil spill, like maybe from one of the cars, and that of course would have caused maybe someone to slip, a car to slip and to just run into, and when they're all bunched together like that, because if I'm not in, I don't think Nürburgring is a circular, but because in the circular circuits, like the ovular circuits, they're more likely to be bunched together because they're all going. But when they're bunched together like that, one person slips and can take out so many. So
it's like a Peloton, a bike Peloton,
Mm.
got all these
Oh gosh,
cyclists
they're
going together at
so
one
close.
time, and one of them goes down and wipes
Yeah.
out several of them.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm very glad that no one else was seriously injured. So
All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. Maybe one of these months we won't have anybody to talk about. There will be links at the bottom of our highlight people, and we thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great, great day. Thanks. Bye.
bye.